Sometimes nature accidentally creates human technology before we realize. Let's get started. Number 10. Nature built lenses before humans did. The idea of a lens feels like a distinctly human invention, a curved surface that bends light, focuses it, and produces a clear image. It is the foundation of cameras, microscopes, and telescopes. But biological systems were using this principle long before humans understood it. The human eye is the most obvious example. A transparent, curved lens sits behind the pupil, adjusting shape to focus light precisely onto the retina. The geometry is not approximate. It follows the same optical rules used in engineered lenses. Fish, birds, and mammals all rely on variations of this structure. The first reports of similar behavior in simpler organisms sounded like exaggerations, but closer examination confirmed it. Certain microorganisms, including species of algae, contain internal structures that act like microscopic lenses. These structures focus incoming light onto light-sensitive areas, allowing the organism to detect direction and intensity. They are not seeing in a conscious sense, but they are manipulating light in a controlled way. The explanation is evolutionary pressure. Organisms that could orient toward light sources had a survival advantage, especially for photosynthesis. Over time, small structural changes accumulated, and those changes began to behave like optical systems. What looks like design is the result of selection. The strange part is not that a lens exists, it is that the same physical solution emerged without any planning. Number 9. Termites built passive climate control systems. Modern buildings often rely on heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems to regulate internal temperature. These systems use sensors, airflow control, and energy input to maintain stability. Certain termite species achieve a similar result without electricity, without moving parts, and without centralized control. In parts of Africa and Australia, termite mounds rise several meters above the ground. Inside, the colony must maintain a narrow temperature range for survival. Outside, temperatures can swing dramatically between day and night, yet the internal environment remains stable. Early observers assumed this was coincidence or exaggeration, but detailed measurements confirmed it. Some mounds maintain internal temperatures within a few degrees, even as external conditions fluctuate by more than 30 degrees. The explanation lies in structure. The mound is filled with a network of tunnels, vents, and chambers. Warm air rises through central channels, while cooler air is drawn in through lower openings. The geometry of the structure amplifies natural convection, creating a continuous airflow. There is no single termite directing the process. Each one contributes to the structure based on simple behavioral rules. The result resembles a carefully engineered ventilation system. The strange part is not that it works. It is that it works continuously, adapting to changing conditions without any active control. Number 8. Bacteria formed electrical networks. Electricity feels like one of the clearest examples of human technology. Conductive materials, circuits, and controlled flows of electrons are typically associated with wires, grids, and devices. But some forms of life have developed ways to move electrons across distances using biological structures. Certain bacteria produce thin, filament-like appendages, often referred to as nanowires. These structures allow electrons to travel from one part of the organism to another, or even between different cells. This is not a loose comparison. These filaments have measurable conductivity. In laboratory conditions, scientists have observed electrons moving along them in ways that resemble electrical current. The first studies describing this behavior were met with skepticism. The idea that living organisms could create conductive pathways sounded like a misinterpretation, but repeated experiments confirmed it. In environments like ocean sediments, these bacterial networks can extend over measurable distances. Cells deep in the sediment can transfer electrons to oxygen or other acceptors located far away, effectively forming a distributed electrical system. The explanation is chemical necessity. These organisms need to move electrons as part of their metabolic processes. Evolution favored structures that made this possible over longer distances. What emerges is not just a biological feature, but a functional equivalent to wiring. The strange part is not that electrons move, it is that they move through organized pathways that resemble infrastructure. And it raises a question that is not easy to answer. At what point does a biological process become indistinguishable from a technological one? Number 7. Slime molds can design efficient transportation networks. Urban planning is typically seen as a complex intellectual task. Designing roads, railways, and supply routes requires analysis, modeling, and decision-making. Yet, a simple organism with no brain can produce similar results. Slime molds are single-celled organisms that spread across surfaces in search of food. When placed in an environment with multiple food sources, they expand outward and form connections between those points. The pattern of these connections is not random. In experiments, researchers placed food sources in positions that correspond to real-world cities. One well-known example used the layout of major cities around Tokyo. The slime mold formed a network that closely matched the existing rail system. This was not a one-time result. The experiment has been repeated with different layouts, and the organism consistently produces efficient pathways. The explanation is based on feedback. The slime mold reinforces paths that successfully deliver nutrients and retracts those that do not. Over time, inefficient routes disappear and efficient ones remain. The result looks like optimization. The strange part is not that it finds a solution. It is that the solution often resembles what humans eventually build after years of planning. And this suggests something subtle. What we describe as intelligent design may sometimes be the discovery of patterns that already exist in nature. Number 6. The bombardier beetle built a controlled chemical reactor. Chemical reactions can be unpredictable, especially when they involve heat and pressure. In human technology, containing and directing such reactions requires careful engineering. The bombardier beetle does something similar as a defense mechanism. When threatened, it releases a spray of hot chemicals from its abdomen. This is not a simple secretion. The beetle stores two separate chemical compounds, hydroquinones and hydrogen peroxide, in different chambers. When activated, these chemicals are mixed in a reaction chamber containing catalytic enzymes. The reaction produces heat and gas, rapidly increasing pressure. The resulting mixture is expelled in a controlled burst, sometimes reaching temperatures close to boiling. The spray can be directed with surprising accuracy. Early descriptions of this mechanism were doubted. The idea that such a complex reaction could occur inside a small organism seemed unlikely. But detailed anatomical and chemical studies confirmed it. The explanation is gradual evolution. Each component likely developed separately: chemical storage, controlled mixing, pressure tolerance, and eventually combined into a coordinated system. What emerges is functionally similar to a combustion chamber. The strange part is not just the reaction itself, it is the level of control. The beetle can fire in pulses, adjusting the timing and direction. Number 5. Forests formed underground communication networks. Communication networks are usually associated with technology, cables, signals, and data transfer systems that connect separate points. But forests are not as disconnected as they appear. Beneath the soil, fungal networks connect the roots of trees and plants across large areas. These networks, formed by mycorrhizal fungi, create pathways through which nutrients and chemical signals can travel. This is not speculative. Experiments have shown that trees can transfer carbon, nitrogen, and other resources to one another through these connections. In some cases, older trees have been observed supplying nutrients to younger ones. The network also appears to carry signals. When a tree is under stress, such as insect attack, it can release chemical signals that trigger defensive responses in nearby trees. The system has been informally referred to as the Wood Wide Web. The explanation lies in mutual benefit. Fungi receive carbohydrates from the trees, while the trees gain access to a wider network for nutrient exchange. The strange part is not that resources move. It is that the network behaves in a coordinated way, adjusting to conditions and redistributing resources where they are needed. There is no central controller, and this suggests that large-scale coordination can emerge without hierarchy, something that challenges how communication systems are typically understood. Number 4. Electric eels developed biological batteries. Batteries are designed to store and release electrical energy. They rely on chemical reactions that create voltage differences between 2 points. Electric eels use a similar principle. Their bodies contain specialized cells called electrocytes. Each cell generates a small electrical potential. When thousands of these cells are stacked and activated simultaneously, the voltages add together. The result can be a powerful electrical discharge. Early accounts of electric fish were often dismissed as exaggerated or misunderstood, but controlled measurements confirmed that some species can produce significant voltage, enough to stun prey or deter predators. The explanation involves ion movement across cell membranes. By controlling the flow of charged particles, the cells create an electrical gradient. When activated in sequence, the effect resembles a battery connected in series. The strange part is not that electricity is produced. It is that the underlying mechanism follows the same logic as human-designed systems. Nature did not just replicate the outcome, it arrived at a similar method. Number 3. Spider silk matches advanced engineered materials. Creating strong, lightweight materials is a major focus of human engineering. Steel, carbon fiber, and synthetic polymers are designed to balance strength, flexibility, and durability. Spider silk achieves similar properties through biological processes. Certain types of spider silk are stronger than steel by weight and more flexible than many synthetic fibers. They can absorb significant energy without breaking. These properties have been measured and verified. Spiders produce silk using protein molecules that self-assemble into complex structures. As the silk is extruded, these proteins align and form a hierarchical pattern that gives the material its strength. The explanation lies in molecular organization. The combination of crystalline and amorphous regions within the silk allows it to resist stress while remaining flexible. The strange part is not that it is strong, it is that it is produced under normal environmental conditions, without high temperatures or industrial processes. Humans are still trying to replicate it at scale. And this highlights something important. Nature does not always optimize for the same constraints as human engineering, but when it does, the results can be comparable. Number 2. The human brain operates like a distributed computing system. Computers process information using electrical signals, circuits, and networks. Data is transmitted, stored, and transformed through organized pathways. The human brain does something similar. Neurons communicate through electrical impulses and chemical signals. These signals travel across networks of interconnected cells, allowing the brain to process sensory input, make decisions, and store information. The comparison is not exact, but the parallels are clear. Early attempts to understand the brain often relied on mechanical metaphors. Over time, electrical models became more accurate, revealing similarities to circuits and networks. The explanation is biological evolution. Cells that could respond to stimuli and communicate with others had an advantage. Over time, these interactions became more complex, forming networks capable of processing information. The strange part is not that the brain works, it is that it uses principles that resemble engineered systems developed much later. And this leads to an uncomfortable question. When humans built computers, were we inventing something new or recognizing a pattern that already existed? Number 1. A natural nuclear reactor operated on Earth. Nuclear reactors are among the most complex technologies humans have created. They require precise conditions to sustain controlled fission reactions. But around 2 billion years ago, those conditions occurred naturally. In what is now Gabon, uranium deposits reached a concentration high enough to support nuclear fission. Groundwater acted as a moderator, slowing down neutrons and allowing the reaction to continue. This is not theoretical. Isotopic analysis of the site shows clear evidence of sustained nuclear reactions. The process was self-regulating. As the reaction heated the surrounding water, the water would boil away, slowing the reaction. Once the system cooled, water returned, and the reaction resumed. This cycle repeated over long periods. The first discovery of this phenomenon was met with confusion. The data did not match expectations, but further investigation confirmed it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe, and check out our other video on screen now.